Terri Irwin's story begins long before cameras, conservation campaigns, or global fame. She grew up in Eugene, Oregon, where her father Clarence drove long-haul trucks but had a habit most people found strange. While other truckers sped past injured wildlife, he stopped, scooped them up and brought them home. Their garage soon filled with raccoons, injured birds, foxes, and even the occasional bear cub. At first, her mother Judy wasn't thrilled. But everything changed when 5-year-old Terri calmly bottle-fed a trembling fawn as if she had done it her entire life. From that moment, the family home became a wildlife triage center, and Terri discovered the path that would define her. As she grew, the number of animals in their care exploded. By the time she was a teenager, the Rains home held cats, raccoons with splints, birds learning to fly again, and even a mischievous bear cub who repeatedly raided their kitchen until Judy installed special locks to keep it out. The chaos turned dangerous in 1981 when one of Terri's wild cats injured a neighbor badly enough to require stitches. At just 17, she responded by building proper enclosures and transforming the backyard into a miniature sanctuary funded with thousands of family dollars. She worked around the clock, often falling asleep in school after nights spent nursing injured wildlife. After graduating high school in 1982, she skipped a traditional college path and stepped directly into running her father's trucking company, managing logistics, payroll, and drivers across multiple states. But she added her own twist. She asked every driver to bring her any injured animals they found on the highways. Soon the business doubled as a rescue network across 11 western states, while Terri herself logged over 50,000 miles with animal carriers and first aid kits stored in every rig. In 1986, she used her entire savings to buy a neglected cougar cub named Molina, who became the start of her official sanctuary. She built enclosures behind her home and called the project Cougar Country. What began with one suffering animal grew into a full wildlife operation caring for hundreds of creatures. She ran it while simultaneously working the overnight shift at an emergency veterinary hospital, performing surgeries and triage on domestic pets before going home to treat wild animals with sharper teeth and more unpredictable needs. Her work drew the attention of Oregon's wildlife agencies and eventually earned her awards as she pioneered predator rehabilitation and tracked animal releases with GPS long before it became standard. Her rescues were often dangerous. She freed a black bear from a steel trap while being stung repeatedly by swarming yellow jackets, tracked an escaped cougar for 2 days before cornering him alive, and raised raccoon kits by hand, eventually proving that reintroduced animals could survive at far higher rates than experts believed. Her programs changed state policy, inspired conservation reforms, and pulled her into public education, where she visited schools and libraries with rehabilitated animals to teach children about wildlife. Everything changed in 1991 when 27-year-old Terri visited Queensland and walked into the small reptile park run by Steve Irwin. She expected a wildlife show. Instead, she saw a barefoot, bandaged Australian wrestling a massive saltwater crocodile with a mix of fearlessness, compassion, and pure joy she had never encountered. She later said that something inside her clicked the moment she saw him. Their first date came that same night, helping him rescue a crocodile from a suburban pond at nearly midnight. She took a tail strike to the leg, laughed instead of panicking, and Steve instantly knew she was the one. Their relationship moved quickly. A month later, he flew to Oregon unannounced, proposed on a hiking trail with a rescued snake still wrapped around his arm, and she said yes. The hardest sacrifice came when she learned she couldn't bring Molina, the cougar she had raised for years, into Australia. After a long, expensive fight, she held the aging animal in her arms as a vet-administered euthanasia. She carried that grief with her for years. Terri and Steve married in June 1992 and skipped a honeymoon to head straight into the field capturing crocodiles. Their early footage, raw, chaotic, unpolished, wasn't intended for television, but years later became the pilot of The Crocodile Hunter. The show exploded in popularity, airing in over 100 countries. Terri handled venomous snakes, wrote scripts without sugarcoating nature, and insisted viewers deserved the truth even when it was uncomfortable or graphic. Together they expanded Australia's zoo, survived countless close calls in the field, and created educational programs and research projects that shaped international conservation. Their work was often dangerous. Terri flipped a jeep in crocodile-infested water during filming, suffered a severe face injury from a charging hippo, and endured a miscarriage in the outback while on location. Yet she pressed on, filming with Steve through jungles, deserts, and oceans. Everything changed on September 4, 2006, when Steve was fatally struck in the chest by a stingray while filming near Bat Reef. Terri, at home with their young children, chartered a private jet the moment she received the call. By the time she reached him, it was too late. The footage of his final moments, potentially worth millions, was destroyed at her direction within a day. Losing him left her not just heartbroken but responsible for preserving the world they had built together. Grief wasn't the only challenge. Steve's father, Bob Irwin, soon split from Australia's zoo amid disagreements about its direction. He accused Terri of commercializing Steve's legacy, took a large settlement, and left with dozens of loyal employees. Rumors, lawsuits, and financial strain followed, and Terri found herself protecting not only her children, but also the conservation empire they had created. She pushed forward with expanding their work, securing vast conservation lands, building a wildlife hospital, and shepherding new shows featuring her children. She spent years fighting mining companies to protect the Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve, ultimately winning legal protections for hundreds of thousands of acres. Despite lawsuits, debts, and relentless public scrutiny, she kept reinvesting most of her income into conservation projects instead of personal luxuries. What the world didn't know was that her deepest struggle had begun long before Steve's death. After Robert was born in 2003, Terri suffered severe postpartum depression. During one zoo swim, she had to pull her infant son away from a snapping turtle, a moment she later described as nearly breaking her. That fear, that sense of responsibility, shaped how fiercely she protected their children after Steve was gone. She never dated again, insisting that raising Bindi and Robert became her purpose and her strength. In October 2025, during a live performance, Robert dedicated a dance to his father and spoke briefly about missing him every day. Terri was in the audience and cameras captured her breaking down, unable to keep her emotions in check. After 19 years without Steve, she still carried his memory with her, still built her life around the mission they shared, and still held on to the belief that love does not end when a person is gone.